I'm very happy to participate in this conference and listen to all these very interesting talks, suggestions, and discussions. Today I will present you a part of my research during my PhD and postdoc in the Italian Institute of Technology under the supervision of Agnieszka Wikowska. So I'm going to talk about the relation of eye contact and the joint attention and the engagement with the robots. So eye contact and the joint attention are one of very important social cues triggered by gaze direction. Eye contact, for example, is one of the very first form of dyadic interaction and has been shown to affect various cognitive and affective states in humans. And joint attention, which is the focus of two or more individuals on the same object, is very crucial for socio-cognitive development. To study joint attention, we used a very typical paradigm from experimental psychology, the gaze cueing paradigm. So in this paradigm, there is in the beginning a face presented centrally on the screen, and then there is a shift on the gaze towards one of the locations. And shortly after, a time that is called a stimulus onset asynchrony, a target appears either to the same location with the gaze, which is called the validly cued target, or to the opposite, which is called the invalidly cued target. A main finding is that people are faster to detect or to discriminate the target when it's in the valid condition compared to the invalid. And this difference between invalid and valid reaction times has been termed as the gaze cueing effect, and it is an index of engaging in joint attention. So we translated this paradigm from experimental psychology in embodied interaction with the iCub humanoid robot. So in the beginning, iCub has its eyes closed, then it opens its eyes, and then critically, before shifting its gaze, it either establishes eye contact with the participants or avoids the eye contact by looking downwards. And then after some time, it's the SOA, the stimulus to onset asynchrony, a target appears either to the same location, which is a valid condition, or to the opposite screen, which is an invalid condition. The experiment was block design, either assigned to eye contact or no eye contact. And at the end of every block, we always ask the participants to rate their engagement level with the robot. So in a series of 4 experiments, we wanted to see to pit the social component stemming from eye contact and against the strategic component coming from the validity ratio. So we manipulated the validity rate, either allowing for relaxing the control mechanism, so non-predictive cues, 50% validity rate, or we elicited a strategic top-down inhibitory activity by having a validity rate of 25%, so counter-predictive cues. And we also manipulated the temporal dynamics of interaction to have a longer one of 1000 milliseconds or a shorter SOA of 500 milliseconds. And what we found was that in non-predictive gaze cues, the eye contact of the robot engaged participants in joint attention. You see that there is a difference between valid and invalid trials, while no eye contact did not elicit the gaze cueing effect. However, in counter-predictive cues, what we found was that the attentional orienting was eliminated, so there was no gaze cueing effect independent of the gaze condition, and also the effect of eye contact on joint attention was eliminated. In the next study, we wanted to see whether indeed the effect of eye contact on joint attention stems from social brain areas, and we stimulated the dorsal medial prefrontal cortex, which is more involved in social mechanisms, and the right temporal parietal junction that is involved in both social and attentional mechanisms. And what we found was that in medial prefrontal cortex, the attention orienting was intact, but there was a gaze cueing effect independent of the gaze condition. So there was no eye contact modulation. And in the RTPJ, the attentional orienting was eliminated, and also the effect of eye contact on joint attention was eliminated. So what we can say was that the strategic control is more potent compared to the social component stemming from the eye contact. However, when there is no need for strong strategic control, the eye contact can enhance the gaze cueing effect. And this may come from an interaction between social brain areas that are built on general attentional brain regions. And very fast, I will talk about eye contact and engagement. As I told you, we asked participants to rate their engagement level. And in all 4 previous experiments that I presented, they rated higher their engagement level with the robot when it looked at them. On neural level, we found that during eye contact, there was higher alpha desynchronization in eye contact condition compared to no eye contact, which has been reported to be related to attentional engagement and engagement in social interactions. And also, in eye tracking study, we replicated the behavioral effect, so eye contact affected the gaze cueing effect, and also participants fixated longer to the robot when it looked at them. So as a final remark, we can say that although the robot has 2 cameras and the eye contact established with it can be treated as a social signal, it's engaging, but it's not always beneficial for task performance. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward for your questions.
Thank you, Kyveli. Thank you so much. We'll let Rochelle begin with remarks.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was a really interesting talk. It's interesting for me, especially because I did actually do some work on eye and head movements, and I also work in kind of touch and body position, things like this. So there's aspects of all that in your talk. So I've got maybe a couple of science questions, but also a couple of other points that may help you. I want to say again in the talks we had this morning that for a short talk, this is a lot of information. You could have presented maybe 1 or 2 studies, and the audience probably take away a lot more information, because I was like, yeah, this is good, and then it's like, oh, there's another study, and it's a lot of information to take in. And I think for advice for you, but all for everybody in this case, is when it's short, keep your kind of overview, what you want to say, short and sweet as well. So I think you started off really, really well, because you the slides are really, really nice. I really enjoy them. They're very clear. And then it wasn't too much background, but you gave enough background for us to understand what you wanted to talk about, which was really, really nice. And then it did get quite complicated for a short talk, I must say, but I did enjoy it. You explained things well. One thing I'd also like to just say is that I think, again, this is kind of a general point for everybody. When you have a figure, a graph and things like this, take time to explain it. These are your results, and this is what you want to conclude really at the end. And it's one of the most important things when people are trying to understand your point, is if they don't understand the graph, the figure, they don't always get it. But if you can explain the graph really, really well, even explaining the axes, what we're seeing, that can really help in things like this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, indeed. I know I realized that there was so much information, but then it was a bit late to...
That's another thing. I think when you're planning your own talk as well, you don't have the perspective. And it's exactly that opportunity, especially explaining it to people who are not necessarily in your field, is that they have this perspective that you don't have because you're so close to it. So that's why it's always good to get feedback from any level, from anybody, on whether people, kind of understand your talk. So
I'm just going to hop in because I mentioned it earlier, and I'm going to mention again that there's this incredibly helpful Nature article which tries to remind us to not start with our big talk and cut it down. Start from scratch and say, what is the most important thing I want to say? And what do I need to capture to fully describe that? And then, if I have time, what would I add to that? But we make this error that we have this amazing amount of good data, great insight, publications we want to spread the word on. And we start with our big talk, and then we try and say, well, I'll just cut this one slide out, and I'll just maybe, cut this little bit out. And it means that on the one hand, we lose focus because people just simply can't capture everything in 45 minutes or 5 minutes. You have to start from scratch and just determine what is the most important thing I have to say, and then build up towards the time limit that you have. And I will just say again, I read this article last night. It was funny that it came up on my radar. And I think Rochelle is the other culprit here, is that she helped me with my ERC slides, and I had to start from the beginning. I had to throw everything out and start again, because you try and pack too much in, and it just doesn't do you any good. So I can only concur.
Just to add to that, I think it's really difficult for us when we have done these studies and we're really proud of them, we want to talk about them. It's really difficult to say, I'm not going to be able to talk about this part of it. For you, you want to tell everybody everything, but you really have to be selective and almost kind of get them to ask questions about it. It's like you're leaving a bit open here, and so you're leaving the door open to ask a question, and you just have to be selective. We can't take it all in, like Merle says, we can't. And I think that is very, very difficult to do. And again, it's having this perspective, stepping back and saying, as much as I want to present everything, I can't. So what do I want to communicate at the end of the day? I also want to...
sorry, go ahead, Rochelle.
Can I just ask a quick question about the science? Because it was interesting, the robot's eyes and head moved. So it's gaze, it's gaze there. I was wondering if you thought about kind of moving the body as well, to signal kind of more of a social signal as well.
Yes, for these studies we use the head movement and eye movement, because then the body, there are a lot of limitations then with the robot. It takes more time, takes quite a lot of time to move the body also. But we thought about the next step, how separate components, because with a robot you can study like how separate components can affect cognitive mechanisms, like maybe how the eyes, how the neck, how even like pointing or the body separately can affect this mechanism. But for example, now with the eyes and the neck, already it needed like 400 milliseconds, this movement. So and the gaze cueing effects is a mechanism that you study. You cannot like let 1 to 2 seconds pass to study this mechanism. So there are some things that you need to take into account when you work with the robots.
But also humans, because the eyes are very fast, and there's a lag with the head and body anyway. So it's nice. If
I can also add something, Kyveli, your study is so cool technologically. It's so engaging to see those photos of the robot and to see the technology of the simulation. I think you can, pump it up when you give a presentation. You can begin with those photos. They speak so much of the level of science that you do. And honestly, it's really unique. Not a lot of people have a chance to do something that involves this level of technology. So I was impressed with that. I wanted to tell you, it looks really high level.
Thank you.
Anything else? Kyveli, would you like to ask something before I move on, or are you good?
No, thank you very much for your feedback.
Thank you. Thank you so much.